How many victims did Jeffrey Epstein abuse? We're going to dive deep into that question today here on All Rise News and the Legal AF channel on the Midas Touch Network, because something significant happened this week in a federal court in Lower Manhattan. And before we get into that, let's get into the background. When the Trump White House claimed that there was nothing more to see here about the Jeffrey Epstein case, they said it in a July memo. And in that memo, they refused to release any more of the Epstein files. They said that there was no basis for a criminal investigation into any other person. They said there was no client list. They went on and on about why there was no reason to release more information. And they also disclosed a statistic for the first time. And they said for the first time that Epstein harmed more than 1,000 people. No one had ever publicly reported that number before. And it was startling that in the same memo where they're saying there's nothing more to investigate, nothing more to disclose, they're also saying that the scale of Jeffrey Epstein's criminal enterprise was vastly larger than previously reported. Now, this week in a federal court in Manhattan, Jeffrey Epstein's estate disputed that number in order to avoid a class action lawsuit by Epstein's victims. And the recipe of those two events can create an opportunity for more information, for more judicial inspection of that number. What was the basis for that number? The Trump DOJ said that they arrived at that number by reviewing a record of 300 gigabytes of data and physical evidence. So what is in the files that led them to arrive at that number? Or did they get that number right? Now, before I go any further, I want to be absolutely clear, just abundantly clear. Everyone who has been studying this case, looking into this case, I've been covering this case for many years, and anyone with knowledge about this case knows that Jeffrey Epstein's predation affected many, many, many people. For example, prosecutors and investigators have compared what Jeffrey Epstein did to a pyramid scheme of abuse. And they call it that because Jeffrey Epstein would pay high school students hundreds of dollars to go to his Palm Beach mansion and give him a massage that escalated into sexual assault. He would then pay the victims hundreds of dollars to recruit other victims. And that's why investigators likened it to a pyramid scheme. And they generally trace the origins of this conspiracy to the early 1990s. And Virgin Islands investigators said that his sex trafficking operation continued until at least 2018. So think of the time scale here. And also think of the geographic scale. Forgetting about every place in the United States, New York, Florida, Santa Fe, the US Virgin Islands. There's also a global reach. His co-conspirator, Jean-Luc Brunel, the modeling scout who was prosecuted and died under similar circumstances in a jail before his actual trial. This was a global conspiracy carried out by a very long time. And sorry to give this detail, but I think it's an important data point for how many people did Jeffrey Epstein abuse. One of his victims said in a deposition that Jeffrey Epstein once told her that he needed 3 orgasms a day. She said he described it as something biological, like eating. So that's the scale here. The conspiracy that by most accounts lasted for decades. It was taking place in many different locations by a man who would make that remark. But going back to the litigation and what the estate is saying, by disputing the statistic that was mentioned for the first time from a Trump DOJ legal brief, they're putting scrutiny on this question that's never been fully answered. We may never know the true number of Jeffrey Epstein victims because many victims did not come forward, have gone silent, and have died, sometimes by their own hands in recent years. And one data point that we do have is that Epstein's estate created a compensation fund for victims. 250 applications poured into this compensation fund, of which 150 applications were deemed eligible for compensation. The executors of Jeffrey Epstein's estate were a lawyer named Darren Indyke and an accountant named Richard Kahn. The Virgin Islands investigators who looked into them called them, in a civil lawsuit, the indispensable captains of Jeffrey Epstein's criminal operation. They've never been charged with any criminal wrongdoing. But after the Virgin Islands settled their lawsuit with Indyke and Kahn, the victims sued Indyke and Kahn in federal court in Manhattan. They are seeking class action certification. And the reason why the estate is disputing the statistic now is to avoid class action litigation. The case is before the same federal judge who presided over the Sean Diddy Combs trial. And he has the case in front of him. He needs to decide the scale of the victims. So this litigation can put the Trump administration's facts and figures under scrutiny. Who knows whether they will be asked to account for the origin, the basis for that number? Who knows what information can be uncovered in this case, which goes into the mechanics of the Jeffrey Epstein criminal enterprise. How did Epstein obtain the money that he paid out to the victims? The victims' lawyers say that Darren Indyke obtained a lot of the money himself in numerous withdrawals that he paid to Epstein. That this happened because of accounting and because of legal work that sustained this global sex trafficking operation, according to the lawsuit. The Indyke and Kahn deny the allegations. This is all playing out in court right now. And another wrinkle to this story, Darren Indyke, after having worked for Jeffrey Epstein for nearly a quarter century, after Epstein's death, he got a new gig. The new gig was with the law firm of attorney Tim Parlatore, whose former client is Donald Trump. In fact, Parlatore briefly represented Trump during the criminal investigation that brought by special counsel Jack Smith into the storage of classified documents at Mar-a-Lago. He also represents Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. And The Atlantic magazine did a large feature on this and the ties between Indyke and Tim Parlatore's law firm. As a matter of fact, in that article, Tim Parlatore is quoted as saying that Indyke's work with Jeffrey Epstein's business was valuable experience for the law firm because Indyke knew how to purchase aircraft and partake in certain financial transactions. And those are similar transactions. Those are the very transactions that the victims say are the ones that sustained Jeffrey Epstein's criminal enterprise. Again, Indyke and Kahn deny the allegations. It's playing out in federal court. The reason why this is significant is that there's litigation right now on class action certification, and it can release new information that the Trump administration has been avoiding putting forward. So it's something to watch. I will be watching it. It has been going under the radar during the entire controversy of Jeffrey Epstein's ties to Trump over the past few weeks, but it's not going to slip under my radar. So if you want more information about this story, visit www.allrisenews.com. I break it down in further detail. If you want to support the work that I do, become a paid subscriber of that. We're on Substack. You can go straight to the website and subscribe. You can become a paying subscriber if you want to make sure that I can keep doing that work. And also hit subscribe right now on the Legal AF channel to make sure that when I break it down in videos like this, you'll be the first to know. And those subscriptions to the Legal AF channel are free. Thank you very much for watching.
Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.